script this guy, and I've sort of made a
Hello, this is Mocha Product Manager Martin Brennan with a Hey, this is Mocha Product Manager Martin Brennan with another quick tip. On rotoscoping, often the biggest enemy is the spline itself, as the contour overlay hides the edge you want to see being matted out. Instead of constantly switching between overlays on and off, however, there is an easier solution. Just turn off the splines and only work with the mats and spline points. To do this, first turn off your spline. This is hidden away under the Show Tangents button in the view controls. You will now only see the spline points, and immediately your work area is cleaner. Since you can't work with an edge without seeing it, however, you can now turn on the mats and control the matte edge with just the points. This is especially useful if you turn off Colorize Mats to see the complete cutout of the object. Also, if you soften the edge, either with an alt drag or using the edge width, you can now get control of the inner and outer edge points while only seeing the fall off. And that's it, they're not called quick tips for nothing. As always, if you want to learn more about Mocha, come. Hey, this is Mocha Product Manager Martin Brennan with another quick tip that works with any Mocha product. When you're working on surface corners or spline control points, sometimes you need to get finer control over the movement to be more precise. To do this, simply hold down the Shift and Control keys on Windows and Linux, or Shift and Command on Mac, and then drag your point as normal. The modifier keys slow down the rate of movement without you having to adjust your mouse or tablet sensitivity. It also helps to have the zoom window on so you can easily see the movement. And that's it! See, I told you it was quick. As always, if you want to learn more about Mocha, come to visit us at borisfx.com, where you can find free training videos. Hey, this is Mocha Product Manager. Hello, this
This webinar replay is brought to you by our technology partners, Dell, NVIDIA, and Intel. Hi, I'm Mary Poplin with Boris FX, and today we're going to talk about demystifying visual effects. All right, so let's just dive in. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this shot into this shot. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a burn onto this talent's hand. We're going to have it slowly increase over time. We're going to make sure we add smoke and fire, and we're going to have to get rid of the tracking markers on her arm and hand. So the director has asked us to figure out how to make this shot happen. Well, when we think about shots, what we actually have to do is we have to look at what's in the shot. In this case, not a lot. But you will see that there are tracking markers on her hand and arm. Now, normally I would say that it's actually not necessary to use tracking markers when you're using Mocha. But if you'll notice, they've been really clever about shooting this so that they have some firelight flickering over her hand and arm. And that flicker, actually, Mocha will treat that a little bit like an occlusion. So what we want to do is we want to make sure we can track through it. That's why we've added tracking markers to her hand. Now, the only thing about tracking markers is once you've added them, you have to remove them. But what's a really good way to add tracking markers to skin is just a simple makeup or tattoo pen, and that's what they've used here. What's nice about that is it's a nice small area we can remove, and we're going to use Silhouette Paint to remove that. We're going to use Mocha to add shapes to her hand and arm to color correct her burning over time. We're also going to use Mocha tracking to add a burn on fire to show you what this shot will look like when I'm done. And to what this shot will look like when I'm done. I'm going to launch Mocha. And we've created a track on her hand. And then we've used the track on her hand to drive shapes and to drive visual effects. So to get started with Mocha from scratch, we're going to type in Mocha Pro, only spelled right, and drag and drop that right onto our clip. You can also find it right here under Effect, Boris FX Mocha, and Mocha Pro. But there's a free version inside of After Effects called Track in Boris FX Mocha. What it does is it does tracking in Roto, but it has you apply them inside of the plugin using the tracking data and the matte data and the Create AE masks and Apply Exports buttons. But we don't want to use the free version. We want to use Mocha Pro because we're going to export a silhouette tracker from this when we're done. So let's launch Mocha. And let's talk a little bit about how to track inside of Mocha Pro. So we're going to take a shape, and we're going to, in this case, we're going to take a elliptical X-spline layer. We're going to drag around our palm of our hand and those little markers. I'm going to turn my surface tool on, and I'm going to take my surface tool and put it onto one of these dots so that I can follow what the track is doing. We track luminance and auto channel in our input channels for Mocha. Usually you need to just stick to luminance. Auto channel will look at R, G, or B, and it's whichever one Mocha thinks is the most delicious. We want to track R, G, and B together, which is why we select luminance. We're going to use 50% of pixels used. That sounds a little bit low for my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up to 100% so that our track is more accurate. That means we're going to find 100% of those pixels, and then we're going to use that for our track going forward. We're going to track translation, scale, rotation, shear, and perspective because her hand is moving in perspective, and that actually changes the algorithm. So if you need to put text or something in, translation is enough. But if you need to strap a sort of burn texture to her hand as if it were glued to it, you're going to need to use perspective because her hand is moving in Z space. All right. So the difference between shear and perspective is this. Shear is just movement in X and Y. You could use that for squibs and logos. You always increase your minimum percent. So you can hit 45 that object to 200. Shaking a layer. Track anymore. So let's just track. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just adjust this a little bit. I'm able to track that any longer. Manual track to fix that. So here we go. All right. We weren't able to track that any longer. So let's just go back to where we are on a good track, and let's switch to manual track. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just adjust this a little bit, and then we're going to jump to our next frame, and I'm going to pull this over here. And what we'll do is we'll just adjust the shape a little bit, just like that. And then we'll go forward one more. And you can see that we no longer need to worry about that track. So on this frame, we're going to trim our layer out point to the current frame. And now we have a lovely track. Same thing for the front of the shot where we start to lose everything a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back one frame. And it seems like we can actually still track that frame. So I'm going to just track. Clue is where we are. That tracking mark. And all right, so now we're going forward, adjust. So what we're doing is we're creating export texture onto our hand, shape for the arm as well, for the color correction shape, make a shape for the arm as well, for the color correction for the arm that we need to do eventually, and we're going to call this arm shape. And we're going to link this to hand track. And now we have both of our shapes for our color correction right there. Now because I've actually finished this track elsewhere, I'm just going to use that export. So we're going to take our hand track. We're going to turn our surface tool on. This is where our surface tool is going to be. And we're going to go to export tracking data. We're going to export as a silhouette corner pin, and this is why Mocha Pro is important. Also, Mocha for After Effects only has the clip track and adjust track tab, Mocha Pro has the lens. Can load the do is paint these markers out. And normally the first time I apply a silhouette paint effect, it's exactly like you apply the Mocha Pro plugin. The only difference is it will create a new file for you and you have to save your cache files. Since that's pretty easy to do, I'm not going to go ahead and walk you through that. But what I will do is we're going to go to our roto layer. Let's go ahead and take our layer and delete all this stuff. We're going to go to our roto. Easy to do. I'm not going to go ahead and walk you through that. But what I will do is we're going to go to our roto layer. Let's go ahead and take our layer and delete all this stuff. There we go. Let's create a track to make our paint follow along with. All right, so normally with Silhouette, what I would do is if I didn't have tracking data for Mocha, I would go ahead and draw a shape around the area that I want to track. I would go to my tracker tool. Inside of my tracker tool, I would select Mocha, select my tracking parameters, make sure that minimum percent of pixels used is what I wanted, and then I would go ahead and hit track forwards. But the problem with that is that then I'd have to wait for that track to be done again. So we're just going to use the track that we made in Mocha. We're going to hit cancel on this. I'm going to delete this layer. We're going to make a new one. So we're going to draw our shape. And now in this shape, I can go into my tracker tab. I can go to point tracker and I can go to import. And then I import my Mocha hand track. And then we actually just hit the apply button and it applies it to my layer. So now we have this lovely track. And we'll just put the circle here. There we go. All right, perfect. So now when we go to our paint area, we can now go to our viewer. And in viewer, we can say, hey, this layer, I want you to use the track for, and it will pin this into the middle of the screen. So now I can paint on this as if it were a Photoshop file. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint this. Now, I'm going to go into my clone tool, and let's talk a little bit about cloning in Silhouette. We have all of our tools here, and we need to make sure that if we want our clone to follow the motion of the object, that we actually select our track under here in Transform before we start painting. Now, another cool thing about the clone tool is I can use open and close brackets, or I can use Control and click and drag to adjust my brush size. And then now we're going to very quickly cover those up. Now, the thing about using the clone tool is sometimes you need to blend with the clone tool. So we have this tool called the blemish brush, and I want to talk a little bit about that. The blemish brush is a blur and grain together, and I want to use those here in my shot. So the way that we're going to handle that is we're going to have to match the grain. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my side-by-side view. And we want to make sure that the grain matches. So sometimes the grain can be too high. We're going to need to go ahead and knock it back down. Now, I actually feel like that matches pretty well. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this tool. We're going to make the brush size just a little bit smaller. And we're going to blend around the edges of our clone tool. And what you can see is that really hides any sins. We made this skin texture hand, like any other plugin that we have. A generic sort of depth mat to make more smoke in the shot because I like this flare, but I want this to is unicorns to hit films, insert layer, or whether or not my corner something that we have to cover up. Anyway, I wanted to add so. Yeah, and let's dive into how this works. So this shot, new perspective, that side and then that, and you can get it into hit mask when a little bit about that with you guys. Perfect lines. When we hit render, you can see that it is rendering so much faster than it used to right here in our interface. Now I am on a laptop. Now I am on a beefy laptop to be sure, but I am on a laptop and that's how fast it's rendering. So pretty cool. And for those of you that are asking what the graphics card is, I believe it's the GTX 5000. All right, now what we can do is we can also export this as a spline. So let's talk a little bit about Roto inside of Mocha. So we'll talk about this shot a little bit, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. So what I've done with this shot, let me just turn that off. What I've done with this shot is I've rotoscoped this guy, and I've sort of made a generic sort of depth mat to make more smoke in this shot, because I like this flare, but I want this to have a much smokier vibe. So what I'm doing is I'm using a composite of BCC's particle illusion, and I'm adding smoke to the scene. But what I'm also doing is I made this depth mat. Made a steel version or smoke. There's plugins to our sort of depth mat. Let's talk that have you track an object and then use this shot up what we call fish tools off. This arm up this arm. These are two more shape. It's a how we make sure these area brush. So is I would take take a and about this mask. I could come brush tool and as we can make our brush. I'm just gonna let's try. It's gonna be a for you. Pressure sensitive.
Brush. I'm sorry, I'm just slow because on the 20 tons of layer.
Time and a half. Well, then when you need shapes, some of the points blind and again for building too fast, it's shown myself. Alt snap for me. Alt S Mocha shape. Mocha does work that I have. It gives you here, and that means that you can really so I'm going to did shape animation. That's a correction there, and then refine your little arc. So have do because they try to correct it, and now do apply. What we're going to do is we're going
to to your host. It
in here
answers that person's question.
Just drag it off properties. It's a roto.
The plugin.
I don't know.
While that's happening, manually.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Whoopsie daisy. As they say. Shotgun to talk about is on replacement or mega. We can track this shot and where the track is looking right here. Okay. And the surface tool. This is happening. We're going to talk about it right now. Laptop. Okay. Whoopsie daisy.
File. So I'll
Yeah.
get off your space and let you go for it, Mary.
That's okay. Whoopsie daisy, as they say. You know, again, I am on a laptop, so we'll just chalk it up to that right now. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about is mega plates. Okay, so normally, if I were going to do like a background replacement or matte painting on this shot, I would have to create a long mega plate or a long plate on my own manually, and then have my tracking data added and then hope everything lined up. What we can do actually is we can track this shot, and again, just so you guys, let's just refresh here. This is where the track is looking, right here, okay? And the surface tool is what the track is doing, all right? So the surface tool, you'll see, is moving based on my track, all right? So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna reopen this really quick because I hit align surface and I didn't wanna do that because the align surface has to be on a different frame. Anyway, the point is we this is our tracking data and that is our shape. With our background here, what we can do is we can align our surface on a certain frame, and that's going to be the frame that we create our mega plate from. And what Mocha will do is Mocha will actually generate a plate for me based on the track. And this is a really erratic shot. It's moving really quickly. There's a lot of motion blur. There's not a ton of texture to track. We've got this car moving over most of the texture that we could track with dust. So what we do is we draw a roto shape around our car and all of the dust, guys, and notice how all of the shadows are also contained inside of this large shape. That's because anytime you ask Mocha to do something, it does exactly what you tell it to do. So if I'd made a really tight shape around this car, it would say, okay, ignore the car, but I'll go ahead and track all this dust and shadows for you because that's what you asked me to do, right? It's like, no, Mocha, that's not what I want you to do. So we want to track the rest of the areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this data and we're going to link a background track to that. So right here, we go to link to track. We say link to track layer 5. Let me just call this BG track so that it's more clear. So we're going to take our BG and link it to BG track because, you know, we want to make sure we name our layers so that it's not layer 5, layer 45, and layer 2 is we're going to that we can see much larger shape around the shape. So because I use keyframes, this plate is, you can see I have, and this is GPU accelerated. So it's a mega 2, places all long mega plate based on the track. So there's my huge long mega plate. Okay. Now, where it's black is where it didn't have enough information to replace anything because the car moved over that section. We can go to our car now and we can say, hey, remove foreground, and it'll take the car right out of my mega plate. So now I can take this mega plate and I can start to paint it. And that gives me a really good reference for where everything is in my shot to create a much nicer matte painting. So I'm gonna, I can actually take my tracking data. In this case, I can export my tracking data right as a copy and paste, or I can apply it right in our plugin like we showed you earlier. But let's go ahead and save and close this. And back inside of After Effects, I can create a really long mega plate. So here's my mega plate. And we want to make sure we name it like EndNote. Really, I didn't want to do that. because the aligned surface has to be on a different frame. Anyway, the point is we this is our tracking data, and that is our shape. With our background here, what we can do is we can align our surface on a certain frame. And that's going to be the frame that we create our mega plate from. And what Mocha will do is Mocha will actually generate a plate for me based on the track. And this is a really erratic shot. It's moving really quickly. There's a lot of motion blur. There's not a ton of texture to track. We've got this car moving, shape, shadows are all it are. What we're going to do is we're going to use, so we're layer 5, and then a large, adjust that shape. I can't entire is how I'm, yep, that's with this. And put it up here, paste. It's doing a pixel by plate. Okay. Now where it's black is where it did now. So now I can where everything actually take my tracking data. In this case, I can export my tracking data right as a copy and paste, or I can apply it right in our plugin like we showed you earlier. But let's go ahead the plate. So here's my array this in here, which is open this. I can head and start, or I can we can start our open.
People have been Yoka. Yoka does not marry after.
I've got really like the point your sense is it's and yeah, applied. That's what clouds are. Paint had a lot more shot before. In this case, what I'm doing, another one of those to do. So you paint these tire tracks out using the blemish brush, and here we go. I think my computer is getting too hot. And again, this is another one of those perspective shift. Doesn't you can make your mega plate. What's nice, and you can. I'm just going to show you. And then these tire tracks, some texture. I believe my computer is getting really. Let's show you paint and go in.
Tôn Phật Quang và là đệ tử của thầy Thích Chân Quang, nhưng mà bây giờ thì Vi không về chùa nữa, cũng như là nghe pháp nghe giảng của thầy nữa. Thì đây là cái lý do nha, các bạn biết không? Ngoài những cái lời pháp của thầy gây tranh cãi trên mạng xã hội thời gian gần đây á, thì người ta nói là cắt ghép, nhưng mà thật sự thì Vi thấy nó giống hoàn toàn với những cái gì mà Vi nghe được trực tiếp từ thầy. Và một vấn đề nữa đó là năm 2021 là cái năm dịch bệnh đó. Các bạn nhớ không? Dịch bệnh của Vi á, lúc đó gia đình Vi á có một người thân.
Game này tao đi top mấy thằng nhóc ở ngoài để im, tao tập trung tao đánh nha. Không mất công này mẹ lại cắn tao. Ok chưa?
Life is too short for fear.
Cause if tomorrow brings something good, tonight I do it all for love, I do it all for love. If you want it, I know I could. Tonight I do it all for love, I do it all for love.
Đỗ Đạt từng xây biệt thự nhờ những bữa cơm bất ổn và cuộc sống sau hôn nhân khiến cộng đồng mạng cảm thán. Đạt đã không còn như xưa.
Ngày xưa,
Con xin miếng bát cơm còn rồi.
Game này tao đi top mấy thằng nhóc ở ngoài để im tao tập trung tao đánh nhá. Không mất công này mẹ lại cắn tao. Ok chưa?
Life is too short for fear.
Cause if tomorrow brings something good, tonight I do it all for love. I do it all for love. If you want it, I know I could. Tonight I do it all for love. I do it all for love.
Đỗ Đạt từng xây biệt thự nhờ những bữa cơm bất ổn và cuộc
Game này tao đi top mấy thằng nhóc ở ngoài để im tao tập trung tao đánh nhá. Không mất công này mẹ lại cắn tao. Ok chưa?
Life is too short for fear.
I need a fabric material.
Em với thầy ba hả thì không có quen biết gì nhau đâu, nhưng mà
Ui rồi ôi, có giống ao trình mấy thằng đang thách đấu không?
Life is too short for fear.
Này bù chớ, này bù chớ.
And I'm just going to show you what that ends up looking like because I already showed you the workflow. You can make your mega plate and you can start to do things like, composite over the top of them. But what's nice about this is you can go into your mega plate and you can paint on your plate. So what we've done here, I'm just going to show you, is we've painted out. I'll just zoom in because I think it's really hard to see without zooming in. You can paint these tire tracks out using the blemish brush and some texture paint. So let's open this and show you really quickly a little bit of that. Go, baby, go. You can do it. I believe in you. I think my computer is getting too hot. Let's put it in a fan on it, I think. All right. So
I think you still have
when
the
this
silhouette
loads,
launched too, maybe.
maybe. I don't think so because I'm pretty sure I
No.
closed it. But let's just
Yeah.
go ahead and open it. So we can come over here, start to. Nice thing about the blemish break, your grain right here to start this, and the detail. Yeah, red. This back into the exactly. The nice thing about the power pen, your data right out of the plate. And you can see that when we make surely normal for the works, I want to come down here, animations, your image, solution, back perspective, add 10 mega plates. The popular we're using it for, and it takes our GPU. Thing I want to talk about, we want to take this dog and we want to take him out of the shot and we want to replace him with this. That is one workflow. You can also use it for things that aren't sky. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'll just show you. So this shot, and again, this I'm just going to show you. You can paint these types. I'm just going to show you the channel. So in this case, what we've done is this is going to go into that, but so this shot. So the last thing we're going to take this large room to troubleshoot. Try to do something like ask Adobe to do a content aware fill on this. Adobe's content aware fill is really good when it works, and when it doesn't, it gives you kind of strange results. Okay, and part of that is because Adobe content aware fill is really, really good for filling in the background on objects that can be 3D solved and are medium to small. When it takes up a large portion of the screen, it has a little bit more trouble with it, and you don't have a lot of room to troubleshoot right now with the way it is. Now, it's a great tool. I am not knocking it. We used a Mocha Rotoshape to try to fill this. Like, don't think that I'm knocking the tool. It's just there's some things it doesn't work on. Okay, and just like there's some things Mocha doesn't work on. You know, Mocha needs planar data. Now, normally I would say that this background is too complicated to remove over. However, it's a pan, and this is actually moving in a pretty linear way with not a lot of parallax. Okay, so we can get away with doing a remove on this. If there was a ton of parallax, we would not be able to do that. So because Mocha is a planar tracker, it removes over planes. If you think in terms of planar data, then your remove will work for you. If you have a ton of hard shadows and crazy organic textures moving behind the object, you're not going to get as good of a remove. And that's part of I'm going to launch Mocha here. Is I've drawn a huge shape all around my dog. But all right, so the first thing I want to show you how I've set this remove up. All right, so the first thing I've done, obviously, is I've drawn a huge shape all around my dog. Let me turn my surface tools off here. So you can see this huge shape around my dog. Now, why did I do a huge shape? Well, because if I try to do a tight roto, again, I'm going to leave motion blur on the background. I'm going to leave shadows. I might leave part of his tail or flops of his ears or bits of his toes on the background. And that's just going to happen if you use tight roto. For removes, you want loose roto around the object you're trying to remove. And you want to make sure that you grab all motion blur and all shadows on the object that you're trying to remove inside of that shape. Otherwise, Mocha is going to think that's part of the background. The next thing I did is we tracked this background. And again, I'll turn the surface tool on so you can see what this track looks like. We tracked this whole top background area. Next, we tracked this bottom area. And I'm not going to make you sit through this track, but you can. Next, we tracked looks like. We tracked this whole top background area. Next, we tracked this bottom area. And I'm not going to make you sit through this track, but you can see that I've made another shape. And again, this sort of perspective shift that would normally give Mocha a little bit of a hard time, not really a problem anymore because of the way we've changed our algorithm. All right, so there's our bottom track. Now, I'm just going to actually put this up here so you can see what it tracked. Okay, all of that. All right, so the white is where the track is looking. The surface tool is what the track is doing. What we also did is we used our link layers tool right here, and I linked these two shapes together. Okay, so what that does is that connects these two layers so that there's not a gap between them when we do our remove. All right, so now here's my dog, there's my background layers. Okay, and we're going to jump over to our remove, and we're going to say, hey, remove this dog. Let me turn my overlays off so this looks extra impressive. And we're going to just say, remove this dog. And it's going to take him out based on my rotor shape and my tracks. And we're going to hit save and close. And we're going to render this back to the timeline by checking our render checkbox and off. And we're going to render tracks. And we're going to hit save and close, checkbox, and dog.
Very nice, Mary.
Remove from our shot. So it's a pretty good remove. Like there might be some touch-ups that I have to do, like here towards the middle. And that's because of lighting changes, you know, and I can always try to use the, interpolate or linear illumination modeling to try to solve that. But in this case, it does a really nice remove right over our dog area, and we can start to put our objects back in the top.
Yeah, I love that you showed. I love that you showed, content aware, and so this is a great example of, content aware, like you say, it's quite good for some very simple removes, but there's plenty of shots that we all know that no software is magic, and so showing an example like this is very, very useful.
Yeah, it's and again, it's not perfect. There's some stuff I would need to touch up a little bit and like blend some lighting together and add some feathering, but I'm really happy with this as a remove, and I think it's important to show people that like no matter how good a tool is, there's still some finessing you're going to have to do.
From our perspective, right, times that these automatic tools might get you 80-90% there, but knowing how to paint, to roto, to track, to stabilize, and do manual corrections is just such an important task.
Absolutely. And if I did want to like say adjust our lighting a little bit, we could come down here into our remove modeling and we could start doing like interpolate lighting. And so now when I do my remove, it's going to try to blend my shot so that lighting looks a little bit better over time.
So, yeah, we even have some cool tricks where like you could save that as a clean plate, and then that would even speed up your render. So I know a lot of people who use Mocha for 360, they'll do technique your render. Have some cool tricks.
Lighting looks a little bit now when I do my into our remove modeling and we blend.
Yeah, we even speed it's to disk. Yep. Automatically linked back in, and that will really speed up their renders.
Yep. So if you look now, see that again. So now it plays a little bit
with us and we keep coming.
Background here looks really good, and the foreground where these colored pieces, I can use linear for the ground, interpolate for the background, and blend those two together. So you're not stuck with just if it's not looking like perfect, there's a lot of stuff that you can do to try to correct those any of there just also.
Yeah, I really think it's going to sort of.
That's another reason why I kind of like showing the shot. This is a
All right, hi guys, I am Mary Poplin, and we're going to go over some awesome new stuff in Mocha 2020 if y'all are ready to go. The first thing I'm going to do is we're going to be showing most of this in After Effects. I am going to show you some stuff in Nuke, read directly, and I would have to cut out the middle of his glasses. A brush tool here, and tracking and roto. Let's go ahead and close this. And we're going to talk a little bit about some practical apps that come in. Tools, tracking tools. Fix that because on Mac, the side, we'll just start track. So right, like a 3D background, use a bunch of shapes to track just a very, and that will give us, as you guys know, that are on the very same thing. And I'll show you and background thing. Tools are we're going to use Beats Ladies how that works. It's a double click while coming to track stuff. The Mocha tools are save that and close it and our whole background because again, and then link them all together on the same. layer using the add to X-spline tool. But again, that's kind of tedious. I just want to show you in a couple of seconds, track, 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 quick mask, and we're going to get tracking. And very, very, very quickly, we've got a whole layer to track using just a very small amount of detail. And that will give us our track for our whole background, because again, Mocha is a planar tracker, and as you guys know, that means that we track pixels that are relative to one another. In this case, we want to track pixels that are on the same plane. This is a really quick tool for defining all of the pixels that are on that very same plane. And let's just turn our surface tool on when we're done tracking, and I'll show you what that looks like. Let's just turn our surface tool on and our grid tool, and you can see really, really quickly, we've got this, excuse me, you can see really quickly, we've got this nice track on our background. All right, so we're going to save that and close it. And let's talk about one more thing with our area brush tools. So the area brush is meant to be a graphic apply as well. Click on this, and I'm going to show you the software to blur out this lady's face. That works. Click launch mode, and we can go new shape because at quick mode it doesn't share a little bit. It's from Mocha 2. So now we're going to host to. I could even to rotor this back out over the top. There's a lot of stuff you can do with these tools. So again, your application for this is going to be quick and easy screen tracks, color corrections, witness protection, that sort of thing. Are there any questions about the area brush before I move on to megaplates?
Yeah, hey Mary, how's it going? Hey everyone, this is Ross. Just thought I'd jump in here. Just kind of, why don't we launch Mocha and we can talk a little bit more about the area brush.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've shown some really cool examples, and just to reiterate, one of the reasons we created this area brush tool was just so Mocha users can get in there and start basically drawing shapes, creating layers very, very quickly. Over the years, I think a lot of people know how powerful the Mocha's spline-based tracking is. But I think a lot of editors or colorists, they kind of might not like to work with splines. So, you just want to create some garbage mats, just kind of touch the area brush and make a really big brush. And yeah, it's very, very interactive. Mary, I don't know if you mentioned this, if I missed it or not, but, just to mention that you can, if you have Quick Mask on, you could add as many different raster strokes before you create splines. So right now, Mary's painting with Quick Mask turned off, and you'll see that every time that she kind of clicks off, it's creating a new Mocha track layer. With Quick Mask on, yeah, she can basically paint as much as she likes. In fact, she could even erase. Yeah, so what's the shortcut on Windows? I think it's
Alt for Windows and Option for Mac, and I did mention that, but
cool.
But yeah, I might have gone too fast.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you really, really can create this masking, tracking layers. The actor back to the.
Let's just do it here. Exactly, right here, and then
let's just point found. Yeah. Parameters. So that there's a lot of.
Oops. Yeah. That's a thing. Well, so we wanted to get this tool out, right? So there's some compromises that we made. Obviously, we want to see a lot more, features in it. But this is step one, right? This is our cool step one. We're excited about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's it's come a long way already. And let's just really quickly before we move on to megaplates talk about the edge snapping.
Oh, right. I actually totally forgot to mention that. That is okay. Yeah, duh. So that's really cool. I'm really actually excited about that feature. So if we want to, for instance, track this hat, I'm going to actually just really quickly, because this hat doesn't have a whole lot of detail, I'm going to take this hat and I'm going to pull it out a little bit so that we get some of those edges when we're trying to track. So we're just going to track some of these edges really quick. And when I track forward, excuse me, when I track forward, you're going to see that we're going to follow that shape, but because Mocha is a planar tracker, it's going to just track the basic planar motion of that shape, which is great, except for I don't want to just have the planar motion. I want it to stick to the edges, and you can see that it really doesn't across the board. So that's okay. What we can do is we can actually come in here. We have this new tool for Roto, and I'm actually going to use this the point selection tool right here. We're going to use the marquee selection, and I'm going to draw around my shapes here, my points here, and I'm going to just hit S, just like this. Excuse me, S. And what it should do is it should snap to the edge. Well, there we go. Alt S. And what it'll do is it'll look for the closest edge it can find, just like this, Alt S. And we're going to snap to these edges, just like this, Alt S. And you see, it actually does this for me so that I don't have to do these hand corrections. And so the cool thing about that is now I can tween between those two shapes that I made. We can look for any problems. So like this area here, let me actually switch to my lasso selection tool, which I don't know if you know about, but you can use a lasso selection to select your points, hit Alt S again. We're going to snap right to those edges. So the cool thing about that
lasso feature is a really fun feature for Roto too. I don't know, maybe just show that one more time where you can find it. That's cool.
Yeah, one more time. So it's right here. It's under your selection tool, last selection, and you just click and draw, just like this. And you can corners of a shirt. You're going to have a lot more keyframes than you are if you're doing a hat. Like, okay, duh. But it's still an extremely useful tool. I ended up doing this soccer roto that I showed in a previous webinar, and I think I did the whole thing in 5 hours, and it was several hundred frames long. So that's a really quick roto time for those of you that are not roto experts. It was articulated roto with motion blur in 5 hours. That's very fast. So, all right. Do we have anything else I need to address really quick, Ross?
No, I think that was really great. It's also really good to kind of remind people what we actually shipped in our last point release. So, for example, the edge snapping came out in Mocha Pro 2019.5, and that's really something that we've been doing a lot differently, and really committing to beyond the annual releases, having multiple releases a year. And that's a great reason to get on the subscription option, because we'll constantly adding new features all the time these days.
Yep, I'm so happy with the magnetic tool and the edge snapping. Like, it's a game changer for me for on the work that I'm doing. And as far as the area brush goes, I've already used it a bunch for really simple tracks without having to go in and start messing with X-splines. X-splines are great, they're fast, I really like them, but it's nice to have an even faster tool for really simple tracks.
Cool. All right, I'll let you take it from there. Thanks, Mary.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Thanks for chiming in. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about a little bit is our mega plates. Okay, so what are mega plates? So a lot of times when we're doing work, especially if you're a paint artist or if you're a compositor, or even if you're an editor, because editors are getting asked to do a lot more than they used to get asked to do, especially for things like previs or figuring stuff out with the director. One of the things that you will run into a lot are these like large panning shots, and if you have to do any sort of paint on them, or if you have to do any sort of compositing on them, you've got this vast area to cover, but you don't have a really good way to visualize what that's doing. So what we can do is we can actually make this thing called a mega plate, where it takes all of our planar data and then it builds that into a single plate that you can then start to manipulate. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. So I'm going to go over here to my Mocha interface, and I'm going to launch Mocha. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we did this really quick. I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to show you the finished version, because I don't think we want to sit through the whole track. But first thing we do is we draw a shape around our guy, and this is because I'm going to interface
on the annual releases, having multiple releases constantly
with the magnetic bunch for release or figuring stuff. Have to do. We've got this thing. So our planar data. Talk a little bit about what that. I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to show you the finished version, because I don't think we want to sit through the whole track. But first thing we do is we draw a shape around our guy. And this is because I don't want to track him when I track the background. And I'm just going to really quickly roto him out of the shot. And I think that'll probably almost do it. Now, I can have Mocha track this, but honestly, it's just not worth it for this kind of garbage mask, just because it's so much faster to just do it that way. Okay, so now he's out of the shot. I don't have to worry about him. It's guy holdout is what we'll call that. And just like anything in Mocha, obviously, for those of you that are new to Mocha, you won't know this, but for those of you that aren't, when we track, if we're going to track this background here, for example, we track in layer order. So this is going to be our beach track, okay? And here's the thing about that. If I try to track the beach track above our guy, we're going to track our guy and our beach at the same time. If I move the beach track under my guy holdout, just like this, when I start to track my beach, and let me just go ahead and take my surface tool and align it down here so that we can see what we're doing. Here's my surface tool. Okay, if I start tracking my beach now. All right, hi guys, I am Mary Poplin, and we're going to go over some awesome new stuff. this kind of garbage mask. Just here's my surface tool quick. So here's my, eliminating your background track, add track, okay? If we don't do that, we can end up with a bad track, and you don't want to have foreground objects contaminating your background track. Another cool thing about this is we'll actually be able to remove this guy based on his movement and the track and the plate that we're going to build. So I'm not going to make you sit through that whole track. We're going to delete these 2 layers really quick. So here's my guy holdout, just like that. Here's my already baked track of the background, and you can see that it is really quick side of the screen plane. That's because if you've ever seen your shape like sort of close in on itself, if this surface tool on the screen, you notice here shape is all I'm going to is remove technology. I'm at maps I used to do for they shot it during the summer. It's out by hand. Build this out so that it builds. We're going to go ahead and hit, and that's used for the remove them or on our over here. Here's our all over here.
Out. Set this stitched module if you got the soft eval can
over 16 plain plate desktop and to get rid and shot. I don't want a complex goo. Well, I tell you, plate. Here we are, and you can get it out. We can use this in a more time. Why am I not finding these? We don't want desolate workspace. Let's go ahead and see now. You or whatever. Really quick demo. I'm going to paint inside tool work is hue saturation and values. Tracks are gone as I can actually take. So here's my remove your a foreground area to remove. Okay, so let's just shape, and we're going to tell just like this covered. And let me just again make sure that shape is right. Okay, it is new clean plate. And we're going to say 1080, but the imported yes, multiple clean remove tool across the board. And I'm not going to render the whole thing for you, but we're going to save this and close it. Okay, right here. Here's your before. Do remove. Okay, I guess not. So good. We're going to jump over to the Mocha Pro module, and I'm actually not going to retract these for you. I'm going to show you what we've done here. Sometimes when you're dealing with mega plates or any sort of set extension, you don't always have a nice pan of a flat plane that moves in one direction that you can make a nice plate for. Sometimes you've got parallax. So in this shot, what we've got is we've actually got quite a bit of parallax, and that's not great for what I need. I want to remove this guy from the shot, but I've got these back hills that are moving different than these front hills. It's moving different from the ocean in the background itself. So if I want to build out a plate for this, I actually need to build out a plate using all of these layers. And that's going to end up looking a little bit not like a flat, nice image. It's going to actually have to build out over here and build out over here. So let's talk about that a little bit. So what we can do is we can go to our mega plates here, and I can click on my mega plates, and I can say, hey, build this out based on the movement of this shot. And so I've got notice that I have a nice roto along the edge of this front hill, nice roto along the edge of this back hill, and just a big square for the background. Every single one of these layers has to be tracked in order to build a clean plate from, because Mocha, again, is a planar tracker. Every module inside of Mocha is built off the planar tracker. And so in order to get good results, we have to have a good track. So garbage in, garbage out, excellence in, excellence out. So we've made sure our tracks are really good for all of these objects. And now we're going to build our clean plate out just like this. So let's go ahead to our mega plates. Let's use auto step, and let's tell it to build our clean plate out. And again, notice that our shape is oversized so that we can actually fit all of the hill inside of that. I do want to tell you one cool thing that I did to get this to work. Again, I used Uber key, and I always looked to cover the entire hill area with that Uber key. So you want to make sure that when you are building your plates out, that you make sure you give this shape enough room to build out. So just like this, now you can see that that will cover that entire area really well. That's really important. You can either unlink from the track and make a gigantic shape, okay, that covers everything, or you can use the Uber key to make sure you cover the whole area you want to build your plate out into. I hope that makes sense, but we have to tell Mocha where to put those pixels back in, and we're telling it with shapes, okay? So now we're going to hit our mid-ground rock here, and we're going to hit create clean plate. What this will do is this will start to build out. Now this is going to take us a few seconds longer than we took for our original build out, and that's because we're building 3 different planes. And the cool thing about this is because it uses remove technology, we can actually, once we're done building our plate, I'm not going to work objects and character that. Click on our guy, and I'm going to hit remove foreground. Notice the gear. We'll think about it to rebuild that. Looks like it's going to behave. There we go. So that's totally taken out of our shot. Just looks like it's going to behave. There we go. So here's me in front of company shot. So it takes the pixel by now. Just take this, and the gear is on our foreground object we want to remove. I say remove foreground, and I just also again, and then it's to embarrass me in front of company. Totally. It is really. You can just go ahead and this clean plate. About that, I'm going to show you this matte painting that I made, and kind of a vista. See the sun too big enough. It looks like. And matte paintings, you know, beautiful this flare. Unless you, this could be Malibu to have this, and we can. I'm not going to show you a matte paintings, owning, you know, photos that we've totally cannibalized. So now, let's talk about how we actually do this shot. I'm going to bring this up a little bit so that we can see all our layers, just like this. Okay, so this is going to be one of those I've baked the cake for you situations. Is we once we start to move, is I use that Uber key again to make points over, because we're just going to start. We can track this down. Our ground, there's not a lot of shape, just like this. Only going to track translate to shear value all the way to 100%. Going to, because we've unlinked from track, looks like. And what you're doing, we're just full track. That Uber key, we're going to make her link our track to itself again. That's okay. Still use for our background. So here's this based on our track. So let's zoom and I go step. I do auto view, creating this solve if on plate here as well. Active unless you track every, you know, it does what it does. Did we?
Can you hear me okay? I think for this kind of footage was very distorted. You know, we do undistorted.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but what were you at? What were you?
So to better perform faster.
A pretty big. Remove foreground. Let's go back down. A hunting plate, and I sit through that. And I want you to notice the thing. If anything, we did is we added here mountains over here have a lot more detail. So again, here's our before. Let's go turn our surface tool on. These off really quick. So here's my original. Let's take our matte painting. I've already imported it. So you plate, okay, it's going to be the project size, your original. All right, so that we support.
No, I think that we've pretty much covered, and modules are working.
Jonathan Lopez.
Hey guys, and welcome to another very exciting Mocha tutorial. Whenever scoping is the process of cutting out your foreground element, frame by in your shot, and you didn't use a green screen, you will likely have to revert to rotoscoping. Rotoscoping is the process of extracting it from your video. These include, and that is in editing tools, you want to find out option for tools. So let's just this surface along into the set. It's behind him on top of Walter. To our wall. It's just behind it, as gruesome as that might sound. So let's zoom in a little bit and start creating a spline for the pants first. And traditionally, in older versions of Mocha, you just select the Create X Spline Layer tool and start defining your shape, kind of outline around the pants. But Because we are on version 2019.5, the tools I want to use here are the magnetic spline freehand tool and the edge snapping feature. So right next to the X spline layer tool, you've got the magnetic layer tool. So let's simply select that. And that kind of works the way you expect it to. Let's just click here, top left-hand side of the pans. Press Z, click and drag to zoom in a little bit. So you can see right here, the magnetic spline tool will automatically follow the edge of contrast along the pan. So I can just drag down here. Now it doesn't work anymore once you're off screen. So I want to get pretty close here. Click once to place that point. And now I could either just kind of outline along here, but I could at any point in time switch over to the freehand tool, which allows me to essentially draw any shape I want. For that, all I do is click, hold, and now I'm in freehand mode. And I can essentially, I could write if I wanted to. I'm totally free to define the spline in any way that you want. So the magnetic tool and the freehand tool work hand in hand really nicely. But let's just undo that because that's not really what I want. I just want to click, drag, give it a little bit of space at the bottom here and come in again on the right hand side. Once I'm at the pan, so let go. It's going to create a new point right there. And again, I'm back in magnetic mode, so I can just kind of come up here, click, create a point, and just drag this across and click to close my spline. And Mocha will automatically convert this into a basic spline, but the magnetic tool just helps me define the shape to begin with. Now, with this spline still selected, let's first rename this layer to pans. Let's reselect the magnetic spline tool. And over on the right hand side, you actually have an option for detail. And this is the amount of detail for the magnetic spline we've defined. If you wind this down, you can see Mocha is going to reduce the number of points on this spline. As you jack this up, Mocha is going to add more and more detail. And I do want a fair bit of detail because there are some curves around it. And now this is just a standard spline, so I can now start tracking this and working with this. For that, down in my options, I'm going to increase the minimum percentage of pixels used to probably between 80 and 90%. I want this to be fairly accurate following that exact. Right now we've just.
All right, hi guys. I am Mary Poplin, and we're going to go over some awesome new stuff in Mocha 2020.
Hello, this is Mocha Product Manager Martin Brennan with a quick tutorial on removing.
Hi, I'm Mary Poplin with Boris Effects, and then we're going to the original freehand black perfect. I'm going to come in and select.
Hello, this is Mocha Product Manager Martin Brennan with a quick tutorial on removing logos in Avid Media Composer 2019. So we'll be working with this footage today.
Reverse stabilization, sometimes called reverse motion tracking, is a compositing method image. You reverse stabilize export direct E in effect. Tutorial on Fusion ports, but CC becomes the first to paint a specific this tracking tutorial frame I want. Stabilize. Think of it as reversing the step and select Pro as can paint or the stabilize or at least try to find a in so that data applying the consider using. Then I have the AE invert. Check the Add Motion Blur option on your AE layer. Motion blur is automatically applied to.
Hello, this is Mocha Product Manager Martin Brennan with a. Hello, this is Mocha Product Manager Martin Brennan, and today we're going to take a more technical dive into using the Python features in Mocha Pro Standalone. Now, to make absolutely clear, this feature is only currently available in the standalone version of Mocha Pro. If you're in a little do Python window where we'll do our coding, and an output window letting Mocha know the details of the project that's open right now. We can do this by importing a getCurrentProject function from the Mocha Python library. So we'll type from mocha.project import get current project with underscores. And this is just pulling it in from the Mocha library for this function. Next, project is now going to tell and call this here a project to them. Single line plus. Now we can that it can't import and get that out layers. Now we could export words on the fly in the interface below and Del's website or the more examples.com.
Hello and welcome to this short Mocha Explainer video with me, Ben Brownlee from Boris Effects. And over the next few minutes, we're going to be looking at almost any one Mocha focus, as Mocha is a planar tracker, geometric, export and use your data. I this through that on this blue layer. It's in without worry, no keyframe based on the key.
Hi, I'm Mary Poplin with Boris Effects, and today we're going to turn this plain acrylic sheet into a... So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is pull this green screen so I don't have to worry about it anymore. Now we have this click to auto analyze button, and Primat Studio will do its best to pull this green screen. Now that auto analyze probably over analyzed the shot a little bit. So what I want to do is, instead of doing that, let's go to edit, undo change effect value. What I want to do is I want to use this UI, and I'm going to actually go tracking is clean my over our clicking say and actually use that plate. We want to use something else. So let's grab our fish and our frog, and we'll drop those on these screens, and I'll show you how we do that. Let's duplicate our layer by hitting Control D and delete Primat Studio off of it. And we'll call this screen left. We'll duplicate it again and call this screen right. So we've got our green screen over the top, and we've got our screen left and screen right. So for screen left, let's go ahead.
Know what hot thought you and I can split the difference. What do you say? Off to battle then. May you find victory.
theo hắn ấn đầu nam sinh bắt cậu ta liếm sạch nước tiểu. Nam sinh đó tên là Huson, cá mập, sự khởi đầu cho mấy tên cá biệt trong lớp một trận, sau đó đánh mệt, hắn cái này đâm qua. Tiểu Vương khẳng định rằng núi lửa đánh không ai dám can thi đấu, kết quả cậu ta đá quá hăng, lúc chuyển bóng không may đá trúng cúc cu của Đại Vương. Đại Vương đau đớn nằm vật ra đất, Huson biết lần này mình chết chắc rồi. Thuộc hạ của Đại Vương lôi Huson đến nhà vệ sinh đập cho một trận.
Nhìn nó to ra cả màn. Thằng kia mày có chắc là con này nó cần sự trợ giúp của tôi không? Tôi nhìn thấy có phải là không đâu. What the hell trong kìa. Ban đầu mình kiểu ok nó cần. Ai giờ chết, gần cao tường ghê quá. Ok, xong. Ban đầu mình nghe thằng kia nó bảo là cái con chết xa này nó là nữ. Mình không hề nghĩ là nó sẽ trông như thế này. Cái mà kiểu cái thằng Curse kia ấy, chẳng qua là nó sử dụng đối build nó có hiệu ứng chảy máu cho nên nó mới hạ được, cho nên nó mới có tỷ lệ hạ được cái con chết xa này. Chứ thấy luôn là nếu như nó không có chảy máu là con chết xa này nó đập chết tươi.
Em này bị xẻ phát ngực. Nhá. Ai. Bắn luôn à? Ấy da. Ôi rồi. Khiếp rồi. Em này là có mặc áo ấy chứ tôi nhìn kiểu gì vậy không mặc gì. Bướm xuất hiện. Bướm ngăn con kia lại luôn anh em ạ. Con ma cái bị trông em như kiểu đang trong sàn như anh em, kiểu 3 sàn chứ. Ôi nhảy đẹp vãi. Tôi thấy đoạn này mà ghép nhạc vào thì trông 3 sàn vãi cứt. Mẩy phết nhỉ. Con ma bị bọn bướm nó gì rồi. Bọn bướm nó ngăn lại, nó tiêu diệt luôn rồi. Tình. Thế này đoạn đấy đáng lẽ phải nói một cái gì đấy với con bướm nhỉ. Hồ điệp huyền bí khả năng bảo vệ bạn ra khỏi thế lực bóng tối. Con hồ điệp anh em ạ. Khi hồ điệp bay quá xa bạn ấn quy để gọi hồ điệp về. Khi hồ điệp trên vai ấn quy làm an ổn nguyên hình. Được cái chứ nhỉ. Khá đấy. Việc triệu hồi hồ điệp sẽ tiêu tốn lượng năng lượng nhất định. Bạn cần phải chờ một khoảng thời gian để hồ điệp hồi năng lượng và thi triển phép thuật. Vòng tròn hiển thị phía bên phải sẽ sáng lên khi hồ điệp đã hồi năng lượng. Khoảng thời gian đạn này. Trên Đà Lạt người ta để băng đạn ở đầy khắp nơi đấy hả anh em? Quả gốm có hình chim lạc con này anh em này. Đấy, đập được luôn nhá. Đập được luôn này. Quy thử xem có ăn hồn đâu. Không thấy ăn hồn nào hết. Giờ đây tìm tôi đang không rõ là thanh niên này có phải là ảo giác hay không nhá. Tại vì khi mà chúng ta đọc thông tin ở trong bệnh viện, người ta nói rằng là gần đây có rất nhiều người bị tâm thần phân liệt, kiểu tổn thương về mặt thần kinh ấy. Tôi nghĩ khi là cái thanh niên Trung này, khi là sau vụ tai nạn bị ma ám là đầu óc cũng không bình thường, không chấp nhận cái chết của đứa em. Chứ bây giờ xác nằm ở trên đường. Ôi mẹ giật cả mình. Ngã thế mà không gãy chân thì giỏi đấy. Khoảng này tôi thề với anh em là ngã khoảng này là hơn 2 mét mà, 3 mét. Ngã xuống mà như không luôn. Cái gì đấy? Gì đấy? Ôi! Có ma anh em ạ. Có cái hồn ma phải chạy. Bố tiên sư. Đi qua đây được luôn kìa. Anh Ma ơi, xin anh ấy. Bướm ơi, về đây với tao Bướm ơi. Có cái gì ấy? Đền thờ à? Có con rắn đang ngậm viên ngọc. Cái gì đấy? Cái gì? Từ từ cái gì đấy? không gian biến mất rồi anh em ạ. Hình như mình phải đi theo một thứ tự nào đấy chính xác thì nó mới hiện lên đúng không? Đây, thứ tự đây anh em ơi, thứ tự đây. Đúng không nhỉ? Cái này là ý nó chỉ cái gì? Mình đi theo một cái hình chữ L à? Có được đâu. Là như nào ta? Đây hình như là sơ đồ các cái ô đây này. Mình phải đi theo cái này mới đúng. Rồi tôi hiểu rồi, tôi sẽ chụp lại ảnh cái này. Mình biết là mình phải đi theo cái gì. Hay là không đi nhanh quá à? Mình không đi nhanh quá. Chậm thôi. Đi nhanh quá là hỏng. Đấy, đi từ thôi. Đúng chưa? Đúng chưa? Đi từ từ thôi anh em ạ. Nhãn thạch cầu, vật hình cầu giống con mắt là một phần của bức tượng cổ nào đấy. Lấy đã. Kinh phết nhở. Đây có một tượng cổ rắn luôn. Tôi phải đi tìm bức tượng cổ nào đấy anh em ạ.
Ahead and launch Mocha. So we find Mocha in our left screens. We don't hit our ad. Turn our surfing down stuff. Similarly, now I should share minimum percent, and we're going to hit much text value up. This is inside the shape. So insert layer, module render X. I'm going to go to my Mocha file, and I'm fish on the back frog. Fish, see all our proper